Alright guys, welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Again, today we're going to be going over a rookie breakdown. Today we're going to be going over wide receiver Quintez Cephus, who the Lions selected in the 5th round. But before we get into it, if you're new to the channel and are a Lions fan and are enjoying the content, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a fellow Lions fan. Every time somebody subscribes or likes a video, it makes my day. It gives me that much more encouragement to keep doing these videos, which I enjoy doing. And I just ask for that help and that support, and I'm really appreciative to everybody that does so. But with that being said, let's get right into the wide receiver that we drafted out of Wisconsin, Quintez Cephus. Okay, so Cephus was obviously a wide receiver from Wisconsin, as I've said a couple times now. He was a junior last season, so he had the opportunity to go back to Wisconsin one more year, try to boost his draft stock, just play in college one more season. And Quintez decided, he made the decision to forego his senior season to enter the NFL draft. Go make some money now, even if you're not necessarily going to be drafted the highest wide receiver, because this was such a deep draft class in wide receivers. He figured, I'll go out and make some money now. I don't want to risk getting injured and having my draft stock fall at all. He was okay. He was in the mid rounds, so it's not like he was a 7th round pick that there was no reason to enter the NFL draft and he could only go up. But he did decide to go into the NFL draft, and was drafted in the 5th round by the Detroit Lions. Quintez Cephus stands at 6'1", 202 pounds. So kind of not a bigger wide receiver, but he's definitely a big slot wide receiver if we do end up putting him there, which is what I think his role will be. The NFL scouts gave him a 5.99 grade, which roughly equates to a backup or a special teamer. But as I said yesterday, that is very close. Obviously 0.01 away from being at that 6, being in that next level of, that next level of the scouting department that, they say you have traits that can definitely be molded into an NFL starter. And I think Quintez Cephus definitely has some traits, and he's even closer to Logan Stenberg, and Stenberg was even, even Stenberg was super close with only 0.02 away. So I think at this point in the draft, as many teams do, the Lions are looking at if a certain person can do even 1 or 2 things very, very well, and then can they use that in the offense and help that player build out and be better at everything, be a better, player all around. But for the start, they can work with 2 or 3 traits that the wide receiver possesses, or that player possesses. I think at this point in the draft, kind of that 4th round is when they start looking, who has a really good trait but struggles at some things? What can we use to make our offense or defense better? So that's kind of, I think, the mindset going into day 3 of the draft. At least that was for the Lions. At the combine, Quintez Cephus ran a 4.73 40-yard dash. He had a 38.5-inch vertical jump, a 104-inch broad jump, a 7.2 second 3-cone drill, and a 4.33 20-yard shuttle. So again, as I said in the last couple of breakdown videos, I don't look into stats unless it's either really good or really bad. But one of the stats that is interesting to look at is that 40-yard dash. He was the slowest wide receiver at the combine this past year, which is something you never want to see. You never want to run a 4.7 as a wide receiver hoping to get drafted. Especially in today's NFL, teams are always looking for the guys that can run in the 4.2s or the 4.3s. Guys that can take the top off of defenses, and if you are, a line pressing him, if he can get behind you, he's gone. There's no catching him. And obviously, the Chiefs have done that. The Broncos have tried to do that. The Raiders drafted Henry Ruggs for that. There's a lot of teams that are looking to go more into that mold of how they build their wide receiver core. But there's still a ton of wide receivers in the NFL. That have been productive, that haven't run in the 4.2s, 4.3s. And there's even some very productive guys that play now and played in the past that, ran in the 4.7s or the 4.5s to 4.7 ranges. But I'll get into that in a little bit. Last year at Wisconsin, Cephus had 59 catches, 901 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He played in every game for the Badgers last season, so he's durable, especially and considering that he's a aggressive and physical wide receiver. He has the ability to stay healthy and stay on the field, which is a good trait because the Lions couldn't do that last year. As I said, we drafted him in the 5th round, the 21st pick, so kind of later in the 5th round. But why did he fall that far, and why did the Lions end up picking him? Is a good question to ask. Some of his pros, obviously the Jeffrey Okudah story. If you don't know, if you're new to the channel and haven't heard me say this before, I've said it a couple times, and I'll play the clip after I'm done saying this. But Jeffrey Okudah at the Combine, when asked who the toughest player to play against was, he and a bunch of other defensive backs in the Big Ten, pretty much all of them said Quintez Cephus was the toughest guy to guard against. And, if the number 3 overall pick in the draft, if all of these highly rated, highly respected cornerbacks that are going to go high in the draft making a lot of money are saying that you are the best wide receiver they played against, no matter what your 40 time is or what you did at the Combine, that's something that needs to be looked at and something that needs to be considered. Because, Jeffrey Okudah definitely wasn't paid to say that. It's not like Quintez Cephus walked up and be like, hey, can you put in a good word for me? It's something that he genuinely meant. He felt that it was necessary to say that because he genuinely thinks that Quintez Cephus was one of the best players, one of the best wide receivers that he went up against. And he went up against guys like T. Higgins and Justin Ross and, a lot of really good wide receivers in the Big Ten and, even against Clemson. And he decided that Quintez Cephus was the toughest out of all of them. So that was a very, obviously very big thing to look into. If you're going to look into something, that's something that I took into, consideration when, going over this and giving a final grade on him.
All right, I'm about to give out an interesting name. Quintez Cephus from Wisconsin. I think he's the best receiver I went against. Doesn't matter what his 40 time was. I think that he's a football's played in between the lines, and he's a technician, someone that I'd change my plan up for every single week. I think he might have been the only receiver to have 100 yards against us, and we knew that going against him, we have to earn our keep.
Some other strengths that he has good quickness off the line. When there's a difference between quickness and speed, speed is obviously long distance. Can you take the top of a defense? Can you run in the 4.3s, which is something we know he can't do, which is a weakness for him. But he has pretty good quickness off the line, pretty good acceleration. He might not outrun your cornerback, but he's, going to get off the line quick, have a pretty good release, and at least get open initially, even if the cornerback catches up after, a couple seconds. He has very good hands for a wide receiver. He can't separate very well, so he has to be able to have good hands and good contested catching, which is something that he actually does very well. That's one of his strengths is contested catching, which it kind of needs to be, because without having that 4.3 speed, you're not going to be able to separate and get wide open, so you need to be able to catch the ball while embracing contact, which is something that he does. He's a good player after the catch. He is a good runner after the catch, I should say. He has great power. He's always looking to run into the defense, try to get 1 or 2 extra yards, which is a very good mindset to have going into the NFL. A very physical wide receiver, and he's trying to get as many yards as he can on every single catch, which is a very good trait, because, those extra 2 yards might save the drive and end up with a touchdown instead of a field goal. And that extra 2 yards might win you the game come later in the game. If, that drive where you fought for that first down, that extra 2 yards instead of just giving up and going out of bounds or something, if you end up scoring a touchdown on that drive and you win the game by 7 points, that catch basically won the game. Maybe not how you look at it, but that is a way to look at it. Every single yard he fights for, he's looking to get as many yards as possible, and that is something that the Detroit Lions needed. Not that our wide receivers don't look for extra yards, but I think Quintez Cephus just takes that to another level. That's something that he prides himself on very, very much. And one of the last things, he's a very willing blocker. He's not necessarily very good at it, but he chooses the wrong angle. Sometimes he's not very good at blocking occasionally because of those poor angles, but he's never going to complain about blocking for the wide receiver or for the running back. And that's something that we need as the Lions. The wide receivers need to be able to block, especially if we're trying to become a more run-centric team. A team that runs the ball maybe 40 times a game. We need wide receivers out there that are willing blockers and are willing to put their body on the line to open that crevice for the running back to explode through and go for a first down or a touchdown. So those are kind of his strengths: good hands, good mindset, fights for every single yard, is super physical, and is willing to block. But, his cons, I kind of mentioned them as I was going over his strengths, but he doesn't have the long distance speed. Obviously, running in the 4.7s is something you never want to do as a wide receiver trying to get drafted. He doesn't have great separation. He has pretty good quickness off the line, but as you develop into the route, he doesn't get great separation from cornerbacks. He's going to be going against very good cornerbacks in the NFL, obviously much better than he was against in Wisconsin, so that could be a concern for him. And then as I said, he chooses poor angles sometimes when he's blocking for the running back. But I think that the last one is something that can be worked out, something that can be taught. He can be taught to block better, choose better angles, and be taught how to block for the running back better in Detroit. The other two are just, unfortunate. Like, he's not the biggest and the best athlete out there, but he's going to work harder than everybody else to make up for that deficit. That's kind of his mindset. That's kind of what he's done for his entire football career at Wisconsin, and I think that's what he's going to do in Detroit. He's going to work hard so that you don't even know that there's a deficit, in that wide receiver room. And that's something that the Lions are going to like, is that mindset to get better every single day and push others to be better alongside you. As I said, the 40-yard dash was very disappointing for him, but there are a lot of wide receivers today and in the past that have run in the 4.5s to 4.7s that have had very good NFL careers. Somebody today that did that was Jarvis Landry. At the combine, I believe he ran a 4.5. 40-yard dash, which was considered slow for him, and he's a very good slot receiver in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns and was with the Miami Dolphins also. He's very productive, very efficient in an offense, and I think that any team would tell you that they would take Jarvis Landry on their football team. I don't think anybody's going to cut Jarvis Landry unless you have an elite, like top tier wide receiver room where he's the worst guy, and that's not going to happen in the NFL. Somebody from the recent past that has recently retired that ran a 4.71 was Anquan Boldin. So basically ran the same time, and Anquan Boldin had a very good NFL career. Was was in that borderline elite for a very long time in the NFL with several different football teams, including the Detroit Lions. But he's one of those guys that has strong hands. Wasn't necessarily the fastest, but always had good catches and good production for his team. And then the last guy is Jerry Rice. You might have heard of this guy. I believe, he's the best wide receiver in NFL history. So you probably should have heard of him if you're a football fan. Leads pretty much every career receiving record that there is. He held the single season receiving record until Calvin Johnson, the absolute GOAT, broke that record from Jerry Rice and took it. But Jerry Rice most of his stats will probably never be caught. I will not be alive to see Jerry Rice's records be broken, most likely, unless just an absolute freakish phenom comes out and plays, tons of snap for 20 years like Jerry Rice did. It's just not going to happen. Nobody's going to even come close to his records. So I'm not comparing him to Jerry Rice. I'm not saying that he's going to be the best wide receiver of all time. I'm not saying that he's even going to be an elite wide receiver at any point in his career. But my point in telling you this was that, even if you don't run a 40-yard dash that is in the 4.3s, you can still have a spot on a roster, still be very productive in an NFL offense. And, just because you can't necessarily run in the 4.3s doesn't mean that you can't be a good football player. I believe when I gave my original grading, my quick grading, I gave this an A-. I'm going to drop it down one grade to a B+. I still think that he's a good player. I think this was a pretty good value pick for the Lions. He's a very tough player. Obviously, Okudah thinks he's one of the best wide receivers in the class. But I don't think he's the best wide receiver in the class. I think he's far from it, but I think he could be a very good and productive wide receiver for the Lions, which is not a bad thing to get in the middle of the 5th round. A productive wide receiver aren't necessarily the easiest to come by, and especially with somebody like Matthew Stafford, he's going to have pretty good production. Matthew Stafford makes almost every wide receiver he works with better. He elevates them, and I think that's something that it's going to happen with Quintez Cephus as well. So I'll give this a B+. I don't know if wide receiver was necessarily the biggest need for the Detroit Lions. I still think they could have gone with a pass rusher or even, somebody else to help protect Stafford, or somebody to go get the other team quarterback, or even a linebacker maybe. But I'm not going to complain about a wide receiver. I don't think we have any wide receivers under contract next season. So hopefully we extend Kenny Golladay. I wouldn't expect Amendola to be back. Hopefully we extend Marvin Jones for at least another year or two. But I think that he's going to help take over that Amendola role when he's gone next season. So I think that this was more of a developmental pick. The Lions pick him, let him sit behind a year behind a very good slot receiver in Danny Amendola, and then next year he can come in and take over and just fill that spot in with very similar production. Um, but that's all I got for today. That's kind of my deep dive on Quintez Cephus. What I think should happen, what I think is going to happen, is that he's going to, show out during the preseason. I think that he will prove that he belongs on the team, and next year I think that he will take over and have a very big role. But I don't think he'll play a ton this year without, Amendola going down with injuries or something. That's, kind of my opinion on what I think is going to happen. And, let me know what you guys think of the pick. Let me know if you guys like it. If you don't like it, who you would have gone with instead of Quintez Cephus, or do you think Cephus was the best pick available at that time? But, with that being said, that's all I got for right now. The Lions did release numbers today. So I might come back with a quick video later just going over who is going to be what and what to expect when DeAndre Swift and Jeffrey Okudah eventually have to change their numbers after the preseason. So if you want that video, let me know in the comments. Leave a like on this video, and I will get that out to you as soon as I can. But until then, I will see you guys later. That is all I got for right now, and I will see everybody later. Bye.